Hi, welcome back. So we're here in Fusion 360 and we're going to take a look at getting started with Fusion 360. So it's a great product from Autodesk. All right, so let's jump in. So here's what happens when you open Fusion 360. I'm in the desktop application. It looks very, very similar in the browser as well. So how Fusion lays out its file system is this. Mostly everything is kept in the cloud by Autodesk. So when you open up your Fusion 360, all your files will be there. Those files are organized into projects. Okay, so if you click on your name up in the top here, you're going to see all projects in the data. I believe it's called the data panel right here. So we're going to go ahead and do a new project. Okay, and I'm going to call it tutorial. Enter. Then we can go ahead and double click tutorial. And now we're inside of this project. So the great thing about projects is you can, because everything is stored in a centralized location, you can add people to it, other people using their Autodesk login. You can also, things aren't stuck here though. You can then go and download them, which we'll cover later on. You can download the files, you can download everything, which we'll cover later on. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how a file is organized in Fusion 360. So you might be used to having like part files, assemblies, and this type, many different files. This can be difficult for people because it's hard to maintain the relative location of all of these files on a computer system. Okay, so Fusion 360 takes that out of the equation, and how it does that is that it stores everything into one file. So if you can imagine looking down at your keyboard, in other CAD programs or other 3D modeling programs, I might have a part file for each key on the keyboard, a part file for the bezel around the keys, and then I would create an assembly that puts that keyboard together. Well, in Fusion 360, that's not the case. So in Fusion 360, let's go ahead and start to model a little bit. We're going to do a simple extrusion here. Okay, so first things first, we're going to go ahead and save, and I'm going to call this extrude. Whoops. So we're going to go ahead and click the icon for save up at the top there, the little floppy disk, which has no meaning to the kids today. so we're going to go ahead and call it extrude. It's weird that the save icon is now something that doesn't really exist. We're going to call it extrude. Okay, so this is the way that I would like you to think about files inside of Fusion. So we're working in this file. Okay, the file can have a lot of different things. It can have design, render, animation, simulation, manufacture, drawing. It can have numbers of different aspects, right? For example, if you're going to manufacture it, this can have it can have your tool paths in here, right? For design, it can have your 3D model, right? So there are a number of different aspects to it. Now we're just going to focus on the design portion. So when we start to go ahead and make a design, basically there are three concepts that I want you to think about. We have sketches, we have bodies, and we have components. Okay, so those are things that you need to kind of understand. All right, so when we're inside of a design here, we're going to make a sketch. We're going to use that sketch to create a body. Once we have one or more bodies, we're going to combine those into components. Okay, and then we're going to use joints to join those components together. All right. So sketches make bodies, bodies make components, components are joined together using joints. Okay. Sketches, bodies, components put together with joints. All right. So let's go ahead and make our first body here. And as I just said, we're going to start with a sketch. So we're going to click on Create Sketch here. This is the icon for Create Sketch. Just so we have more space, I'm going to go ahead and hide the data bar now that or data panel now that you are familiar with it. And the first thing I have to do is select a plane to work on. I'd like you to default, unless you have a good reason not to. Now as we go forward, you'll want to be creating sketches in other places, but just to start, we're going to go ahead and select the X, Y plane. Okay, so did you notice what just happened there? I clicked and it went into sketch mode. Okay, now I'm going to click on finish sketch and we're going to go back out of sketch mode. So here we're in 3D mode, right? We see all our 3D tools. We see extrude, revolve, hole. Okay, we see all these 3D tools, right? Okay, now I just click finish sketch. I'm back out of sketch mode. So there are no sketches, right? Wrong. We made sketch 1. Okay, so that is the first mistake that everyone just right off the bat starts to make. They make a bunch of sketches and they get confused because basically they're not understanding that, you know, when you create something inside of Fusion, it's going to stay there, right? And we use this browser bar to explore the sketches and bodies and components and joints that are inside of our design. So I just finished sketch, so let's go back into sketch 1. Now I could create a new sketch like I did before and create sketch 2, okay? But I don't want to do that, right? And I'm going to right click and cancel to get out of sketch tool. So we're going to go ahead and double click sketch 1 to get back into it. Now we're back into sketch mode and we see that up on the top our toolbar has changed to the sketch toolbar. We see all our sketch tools up there. Okay, so that's the very first thing, is understanding sketch mode, that it's modal, right? We're in 3D mode or we're in sketch mode, okay? And we get into sketch mode by double clicking on a sketch in our browser bar. We get out of sketch mode by clicking finish sketch, okay? All right, so double click sketch 1 and we're back into sketch mode. All right, so we're going to create a kind of a simple extrusion here. We're going to start at the origin. We're going to click. We're going to move the mouse. We're not dragging. We're not clicking and dragging. We're clicking once. We're moving the mouse, and then we're clicking again. Okay. So we created our rectangle. Whenever you draw something inside of Fusion 360 or any 3D modeling program, the very next thing you should do is to dimension it. Unless you have good reason not to. But starting out, dimension everything, right? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the sketch palette here for space. So the first sketch here, we're going to click, we're going to move the mouse up, and we're going to click again. And this is going to dimension this is going to create our first dimension. What I'd like you to notice here is the dimension has a name, and that name is D1, dimension value, okay? So we're creating two things when we create a dimension. We're dimensioning this side. We're also creating a variable called D1 that now is going to hold the value of whatever we put in there, okay? So basically, if I put 4 inches or enter, it's going to default to inches, right? If I wanted to change it away from inches, I would go in here to document settings and change the units to something else other than inches. Okay, and if I highlight it, we have D1, okay? Now, I want to go ahead and do the other side of this rectangle, and I can click, move the mouse, and click again. And what I can do, I can either put in, let's say I want it to be half the size, so I put in 2. Now I can either put in 2, or I can make it relative. I can go over here and I can click the other dimension. Notice that it gives me that name D1, and I can do divide by 2, and then enter. Okay, and that gives me fx is that's that originates in it's a Microsoft standard for function, right? So back in the day with spreadsheets. So fx is that's a short for function, and as a result of the function, it's 2 inches. All right, and then I can finish sketch. All right, so I've dimensioned this rectangle. I have dimensioned using just putting in a number. I've also dimensioned by using a formula, okay? And that formula, if I double click on it, referenced the dimension D1 over here. I got that by just clicking it, okay? And I can click finish sketch. All right, now let's say that I want to go back in, and let's say I want to change this, okay? So by using that variable, okay, by using dimension 1 as kind of a variable that then controlled dimension 2, what I can do is I can go back in, I can go to assemble, oops, not assemble, I can go to modify, I can go to change parameters, and notice that, so this was in modify, change parameters, and notice that every extrusion, every time I put in a number, in the parameters area, each one of those is saved, and so is its value, okay? So if I wanted to go in here and all of a sudden I wanted to change this rectangle, instead of 4 inches, I want to change it to 8. I could delete and then 8 and then enter. Okay, all of a sudden that dimension changed, and all the dimensions that use that dimension as use that variable. So here we changed D1 to 8 inches. Now D2, which is defined as D1 divided by 2, is now 4. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and click OK. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and extrude. So we're going to click on extrude, the extrude tool, and I can pull this up. I can rotate it. Because mice are kind of glitchy, and especially if you're in a browser with an internet connection, it's problematic. Okay, so you can do everything that you can do by dragging these, what they call heads-up controls. You can do everything that you can do there in this very nice, very, very dependable dialog box. Okay, so let's do that. So we have our distance here. We can do, say we want to extrude it 4 inches. We can also do -4 inches to go down. Okay, and we're going to be creating a new body. So notice, just to notice here, we can do a distance. We can go from one object to another. We can go all. But when we're creating material, we usually want to do a distance, especially when we're doing a new body. We can also taper. Okay, so say we want to do a 10-inch tape or 10-degree taper, or a -10-degree taper. We can do that as well. I'm gonna go ahead and just keep it at 0 degrees. And then we're gonna go ahead and click OK. All right. So here is our extrude. All right. The next thing we're gonna do here is that we're going to go ahead and create a second sketch. Okay. So invariably we want to, when we're creating a part, we never want a rectangular solid, right? So we want a rectangular solid with some features on it. We want like a hole in it or something else, right? So depending on what we're making. So we're going to go ahead, and the way that we do this now is we need another 3D feature. Okay, so we need so we have this sketch 1. We now have body 1, right? I can highlight over it. Body 1 is based on sketch 1. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to change this body. Okay, so so we could create a new body, or we could affect this body here. Okay, so let's go ahead, and we're actually going to add a hole onto this body using extrude. So basically we're gonna go to create sketch, and we can put a sketch on any flat surface. Okay, so we're gonna choose the side of this rectangular solid. We now have a sketch. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and create a circle. We'll click the circle tool, click, move the mouse, click again. Okay, then we're going to go to the dimensioning tool, and we're going to say that this this circle, that diameter, we're going to say, notice how this is D5 here. Okay, we're going to say that this is D1 divided by 4. Okay, so it's D1 divided by 4. Remember, D1 is now 8 inches, right? Okay, you don't have to do that. You can just put in the value there. We can also go ahead and create a sketch. We can also go in and create a dimension. Whoops. We can also create a dimension from this side. Okay, now notice that this is 4 inches. Okay, this would overcreate the sketch. We're going to create a driven dimension. Okay, the nice thing about the driven dimension, though, is that we can see it inside the sketch. So okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to dimension from the side here. So we're going to go from the middle of the circle to the side of the rectangle. And remember, this is D1 divided by 2. Okay, because we want it to be halfway, right? And then we're going to go ahead and go from the top to the bottom. Okay, and then this is going to be D2 divided by 2. Remember, D2 was the height of the rectangle. Okay, and that's going to put the circle directly in the middle of the rectangle. Okay, and just thinking through it, it's simple math that you're using to relatively position these items, right? Now, is that necessary? No, it's not. You can just go ahead and just, if you're thinking about it, if you know you're not going to be, adjusting this later on or don't need it to be variable, just go ahead and type in the numbers. No big whoop. So we're going to go ahead and click on Finish Sketch. And then we're going to go ahead and extrude. Okay, so we're going to extrude again. Now, extrude is a very versatile tool. So we're going to go ahead and click and select the circle that we just drew. We're going to go ahead and rather than do a new body or a join, we're going to go ahead and do a cut. Okay, now notice that cut. And rather than do a distance this time, we're going to go ahead and do to an object. Okay. And when we do that, notice that we get this blue selection tool. Okay, so we have the selection tool. We're going to go back up to the cube, and the cube is really useful. We can click and drag the cube, all right? Okay, the other way to do this, sorry, I was figuring it out there for a second. So you can left click and drag the cube. If the cube is problematic for you, you can also hold shift and do your mouse or your wheel button or your middle click button, and it will do the same thing. Okay, so those are two ways to rotate it, but you do need to rotate things. So you need to either use click and drag the cube and to spin things around, or you need to hold down the shift key and click the wheel button on a regular mouse to spin around. Okay, so we have this blue selection, and now we're going to select the to object, and that's what we're going to cut over to. So we're going to click to, and notice now we've cut over to this side. Again, we can do a taper angle if we choose. We can do an offset if we choose. Yeah. So, and we can, if the side was irregular, our side is regular, so we don't have to worry about it. We could extend to the adjacent face. All right, so we're going to go ahead and click OK. And there we have our extrusion. All right, so the next thing we're going to do one last extrusion here. We're going to click Create Sketch. We're going to put a sketch on the top of our cube. We're going to go ahead and create a circle again. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and dimension it one more time. Okay, and remember we got D1 divided by 4. We've got click the middle of the circle, click the side of the rectangle, move the mouse up, click again. We've got D1 divided by 2. And then we're going to do from the top to the bottom. So we're going to go middle of the circle, top of the rectangle, click, click, move the mouse out, click one more time. And then we're going to go D1 divided by 4. Okay, and that's again is going to put our circle right in the middle of our rectangle. You know what? But I want to change it. I want to make it a bigger circle. So we're going to go ahead and do D1 divided by 4 to make it really quite big. D1 divided by 2 to make it really quite big. All right, and we're going to go ahead and click Finish Sketch. Okay, so now we have this kind of larger circle on the top, and we're going to do one last extrude here. We're going to click Extrude. We're going to select the circle, and this time, instead of new body, if we did join, we'd create new material. Okay, so let's say that we're going to create a cylinder on the top of this. We could create new material using join, but that is not what we're going to do in this case. So instead of join, we're going to do intersect. And intersect is kind of hard sometimes to understand. So we're going to intersect. We're going to go all, okay, and we're going to be we're going to flip it to go down. And now notice what happens here. So intersect means that you only leave the material that is intersecting the extrude and the existing body. Okay, so that is the intersect. Okay, so in this case, we have this intersect, and we've created this cylinder with a hole in the middle. Okay, we're going to go ahead and click OK. And here is our finished part. The last thing that we're going to do here is that, well, the last couple of things we're going to do here is that the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and right click on this, and we're going to right click on the body, and we're going to click Create Component from Body. Okay, so we're going to convert, once our part is really completed, we're going to convert it into a component. Okay, and that's going to allow us to go ahead and do our joints later on. So we're going to go click Components from Body, and now we've created this component one. Okay, so now our sketch is up here, and now we have this component one. Okay, we can right click on component, and we can click on Appearance. Okay, and we get this appearance here. And notice now what we can do is we can say, let's say we want to make it glass. We can open up the glass. Let's say we want to make it smooth window glass. What we can do is we can then take this, once we find our material that we want to use here. It's a little bit hard to see on the screen. We can go ahead and we can drag this over and we can drop it right onto the component. Okay, and that's going to create our appearance for us. All right, so there we have it. There is our glass extruded component. All right, best of luck starting out with Fusion 360 and the Extrude tool.